I think the main thing is people don't necessarily know what they want to do, know what interests them. And what's so crazy is, the more I do what I'm doing with PlayBooked and talk to student athletes, the more you realize how many different types of jobs there are out there in the world. And every day you learn about something else that you never knew existed, right? So if you're at that stage, if you're a young person at that stage, I think the main thing is, LinkedIn is a great tool. Talk to as many people as you can. Have one-on-one conversations with people and ask them what they do. And be, if you have no agenda other than, I really want to understand what they do, how they got that job, do they like it? Do they not? If they don't, why? And if you're at that age where you're really trying to figure out what you want to do with your life, I think the first thing is recognize that there's 10 times more opportunities out there than you ever thought there were.
Hi everyone, this is Joshua Hoffman and Alex Garashenko, and welcome to another episode of the Masters in Marketing Agency podcast, where we deconstruct the why and how agency owners found their success, and in Season 4 focus on how we can give and receive referrals. Today I have Brent Barkin, the CEO of PlayBooked, a marketing firm that connects brands and college athletes together to crush micro-influencer campaigns at scale. Welcome, Brent.
Hey, thanks, Josh. Happy to be here.
And I guess just to say, last time we spoke, you had a wine in the hand. Today it's a little bit earlier, so you got the coffee in the hand. At least that's what you told us. So am I allowed to say that?
Well, the wine was brought out the window, remember?
That's fair. That's fair. It was not, yes, exactly. So it was brought by a friend. So maybe if we can do it at the end.
It wasn't initiated by you.
That's right. That's right. And as we will learn throughout the episode, you worked for the family business, which we'll get into, Shoe Station, eventually become the CEO and selling your company. However, I guess it wasn't always obvious to you that you were going to go back to work there. And the last time we spoke, you mentioned that you were figuring out, what your next step was going to look like after college, and decided to go a completely different route after that. So can you tell us a little bit more about what you ended up doing after college? And did you learn any lessons from what you did and that you eventually brought to Shoe Station?
Yeah. So immediately after college, I would say right before I left college, and a lot of seniors get into this, and I have friends now who have kids that are graduating from college, you get into that kind of now what kind of thought process that you have with yourself. Like, okay, well, I've been working, I've been in our situation, we had a senior thesis, so you're plowing through that, and then you're getting ready, you're prepping graduation, your parents are coming, and in the meantime, you have that April, May pocket of your senior year where you're like, what am I going to do? So, I had always had the option of going back and working for the family business, and instead it was like, that was that 180 of like, I'll just go teach at a boarding school for a few years. And what I learned from it that I would bring is don't assume that the people that are working for you that it's their forever job, and basically don't assume. Recognize that these are people, these are young people. It could be older people that haven't made a decision that this is what they want to do with their life. So at some level, a lot of people recruit people that they want to have work for them. But part of it is keep the people that you have working for you, and make sure that you're challenging them and you're having real conversations with them, because what they're doing may not be what they're going to do forever, and also what they're doing, if it doesn't interest them, they have every right to leave and move on.
That's really interesting. How do you two parts there then, and you can either answer both or one. How do you suggest handling people that are at that stage, or how do you suggest people handle that themselves? Like how do they get to the next to finding what they love or whatever it is?
Right. So why don't we do the how do you handle them at that stage second? Right. Sure. So the first one is, I think the main thing is people don't necessarily know what they want to do, know what interests them. And what's so crazy is, the more I do what I'm doing with PlayBooked and talk to student athletes, the more you realize how many different types of jobs there are out there in the world. And every day you learn about something else that you never knew existed. Right. So if you're at that stage, if you're a young person at that stage, I think the main thing is, LinkedIn is a great tool. Talk to as many people as you can. Have one-on-one conversations with people and ask them what they do. And be, if you have no agenda other than, I really want to understand what they do, how they got that job, do they like it? Do they not? If they don't, why? And if you're at that age where you're really trying to figure out what you want to do with your life, I think the first thing is recognize that there's 10 times more opportunities out there than you ever thought there were. Back in the days, like, well, I can be a lawyer, I can be a doctor, I can be a businessman, and then something else. And the breadth and depth of opportunities that are out there are just staggering. And it's really ignorance, which is why people settle on things, because they don't know, or they don't know how to look. On the other side, if you're an employer and you're contending with that situation, I think people do a kind of a start or stop with employees where they say, they're either gung-ho with this employee or some switch clicks in their head where they're like, okay, this guy's checking out, let's move on. And it is infinitely easier to take somebody that already knows your business and work with them than it is to go stop what you're doing, go out, go recruit, find somebody else, teach them about the business, and you have that whole ramp up drill, right? So, I think retention is key there, and you've got to basically start asking that employee honest questions like, "Are you enjoying what you're doing?" And say, "Look, I want to know if you're enjoying what you're doing. I don't want you here doing something you don't enjoy. But I do want you here. So maybe there are other things that you could have them do, other outreach that you find that you have them doing mundane tasks in a dark room by themselves, and what they really are is a people person, and they like going out. And maybe you just haven't thought of ways that you can get them to go out and engage the community, engage potential customers. So hopefully that hits you from both parts of the question.
Yeah, and I actually want to tie that same concept that you said about having too many options for jobs, because I think that's absolutely true for anyone that's especially out of college. But really, I think that can last all the way to late age.
That's right.
If people didn't find it. And I want to tie that actually to marketing, because again, the last time we spoke, you mentioned that marketing for Shoe Station has also changed greatly from when it started to now. And a lot of the issues, and I'll let you kind of speak to this, but a lot of the issues now is there's so many options. A lot of people don't know where to start. So can you talk a little bit about what Shoe Station is, how you got, how you grew that, and how and why marketing has changed from when you started to now, and what the difficulty is?
Sure, absolutely. So again, for you, refresher, it was our family business, started in '84. I've been there off and on since I was 10 years old. So some of what I'm saying is me at 10. Some of what I'm saying is when I came back in 2000, right? Or 2002. So, but a lot of it still applies. We were always a traditional marketing. That was and I mean, by traditional, I mean stuff nobody does anymore, right? It's just newspaper, yellow pages for, everybody, yellow what? Right. So newspaper, yellow pages, billboards, some radio, a little bit of TV. That was it. And really, you could reach the vast majority of the community through one or all of those. And you could, in Mobile, Alabama, you could hit 120,000 people with a newspaper ad running once a week. If you want to hit 120,000 people in Mobile, Alabama right now, and again, I mean, I'm from Mobile, Alabama. Now, our store was in Mobile, Alabama, so people saying, why is he using that as an example? That's an example, right? But you can't hit 120,000 people in Mobile, Alabama now at all. I mean, you can't get that group of people. And if you really were hyper-focused that you wanted to, yes, you could do direct mail, but most of direct mail just get turned right back and tossed in the trash. So you would have to do all the things I brought up before, all the traditional boring things, direct mail. And then you'd have to be on every streaming service, and you'd have to geo-target. You'd have to be on every form of social media, and you'd have to geo-target. And you're still handling a lot of the area that if they're on a streaming service, they're on a paid streaming service where there are no commercials, et cetera. If they're on radio now, they're on a paid radio service where there are no commercials. So it is near impossible to reach that same aggregated audience as it was back in the day with traditional media. And if you could, you would pay 10 times more. Okay, so that's kind of as I went from 1984 as a 10-year-old seeing just newspaper ads to in 2002 really seeing kind of the same thing. And we mixed in more radio, more billboards. And then, I started our website in 2005. So we had our website to market through and email marketing, et cetera, and then eventually text marketing. There are a million ways to market to people now. In some ways, there are hyper-focused, hyper-targeted ways to market to people, right? I mean, the rewards program, while it existed way back in the day with airlines, et cetera, did not become a major retail piece until early 2000s, that it was widespread, early 2000s, late 2010s, early 2010s, late 2000s. And we got on that train. And every retailer that you ever talk to talks about the growth of their loyalty program. The only problem is because it's actually very inexpensive to use a loyalty program properly, especially once the tech is set up, you're marketing your own customers, you're basically doing email, text, some direct mail. It's infinitely less expensive, and usually the reaction is really good, but you're preaching to the choir. There are people that already know about you, and you're not expanding your customer base. So generally speaking, what you'll see is companies that are entirely reliant on their loyalty program end up having their customers get older and older and older because you have the same customers, and now they're 2 years older. It's been 2 years. They're 3 years older. It's been 3 years. So you will see a ton of companies that will talk about how successful their loyalty program is, and also are dropping in sales. So it's like, well, look how successful we are, our loyalty program. And you say, and all that means is that they've cut their marketing budgets and they've replaced it with effectively hanging out. It's like the social equivalent of hanging out with your friends. And you're like, I've got great friends. Well, how many do you have? Well, I have 5. Okay. Well, what about new friends? I don't need new friends. It's fine.
Yeah, the retention is there, but you're not getting new, and revenue dropping year over year.
No new shoppers, and then your marketing budget shrinks, and you're not conducting any outreach, and your comp store sales shrink. And what I'll tell you right now, what's very interesting, part of the reason that a bunch of comp store sales seem to be getting worse recently, if you look at the news, is because inflation is getting better. So inflation was masking these comp store drops in traffic, where, we picked up 3% last year. Well, hold on a second. Inflation was 6.5%. So you really dropped in traffic. Well, now that inflation is at 3%, people are dropping 3 and 4% because their traffic's down. So, I'm no better than they are. I mean, it's increasingly complicated. And that's the reason, why a solution like ours exists, like, at PlayBooked, why all of these other ways to reach customers are popping up. And some of them are incredibly effective, but unfortunately, there's not a one-size-fits-all answer, and what works for one business doesn't work for every business.
This is probably a bad question, but I feel like you might have a good answer to it. And if you don't, or if you just answered it, that's totally fine. What's the biggest lesson that you learned from ShoeStation?
Well, the biggest lesson I learned from my father. My father had a tendency to call me an efficiency expert, which I took as a compliment for a while until I realized it was an insult. And what he meant was, it's like kind of the bean counter compliment, right? So I always had an idea of how we could save money. Okay, well, if we start doing this and not this, the newspaper ads are, we're running full page ads. I can negotiate with them. Maybe we'll shrink the ad size. We'll do this. And his entire premise, which is, I think, what I learned from ShoeStation, from business in general, which is like an old mantra: if you're not growing, you're dying. So if you're not gaining market share, you are eventually losing. And yes, I kind of touched on it with the loyalty program to say, oh, look how we're more and more profitable every year. Well, you're more and more profitable as a percentage of revenue. Mm-hmm. Okay. But is your revenue growing? So you could be doing, $500 million and have this percent profit, and the next year do $200 million and have a higher percentage profit, but your profit has dropped, and your market share has dropped, and it's dog eat dog. So if you allow competition, now you don't have to be predatory. You don't have to lose money on purpose just to drive people out of business. It's not good business. A, it's not legal typically. B, but if you're not doing things to grow your top line, eventually your bottom line will fail also. So that's what I would say is lesson number one. Lesson number two would be, you only asked me about one lesson, but I'll give you two. Lesson number two is, what worked last year is not going to work as well this year. You can't just do the same exact thing every year. You can't. You can anniversary certain sales, but they're typically not as good. You have, changes. The only thing constant is change, right? So, I would say I didn't learn that. I didn't make that up. I forget who said that, but
there's a quote.
That's just true.
And maybe I'll look it up as you respond to the next question. But it's something that, you hear those quotes and they just like attach to you, and you don't even need to remember it. Like you just do. And it's because it's whether you needed to hear it or you've already been living it. And the one that really attached to me for that one is, what got me here won't get me there. So very similar to what you're saying. And I think that's a lesson for everyone, because, I don't know why I'm thinking about this, but artists think that like their depression is what made them great artists, which very well could be the case, or comedians. But like, that doesn't mean you need to stay in there. And a lot of people think that if they lose that depression or whatever got them there, they won't be the same. And that's not always the case. And actually you have to evolve out of that to evolve to the next stage of what you're trying to accomplish. So I think that was really good.
And so many companies fail because it's the next wave of technology or whatever new comes up. They're not willing to adopt because this is the way we've done it before, and this is what made us successful. Consistently changes.
Well, that's the other kind of mantra my father said. Who remembers who the top buggy whip maker was? Like he was like,
right.
It's something you don't use anymore. You never, as the automobile came, like the horse whip or the buggies. But I'm sure there was a dominant player in that market, and you can continue to do what you do, and think and watch the world change around you, and define your law, define your boundaries and dig your heels in. But you have to be, you have to recognize, the sea of change. I'm sure we'll touch on it, but AI is one that you try to fight against AI, and you're going to lose, right? And you can say, well, we're a marketing company. Well, we don't use AI. We only use people, and that's right. And then somebody next door to you could use AI and eat your lunch, and you're patting yourself on the back that you.
So would you put it as a like the way he was calling you an efficiency expert, kind of like internally focused on the company and creating efficiencies, potentially saving money, whereas he was thinking externally, how can we grow? How can we attract new people, do more things?
Yeah, his was expensing, you hear this all the time, cutting expensing to a profit. So instead of a company, the best way to grow profits is to grow your top line, because even then the percentage, you play the law of percentages. If we have 10% bottom line profit and I do twice the amount of money, I do twice the amount of profit, right? All my fixed expenses drop as a percent. All the variable expenses will keep going up, but you make more and more money. He was basically saying I was more focused on how do we save money than how do we make money.
Yeah, and that's a really interesting perspective. I took it as you were internally focused, and you're potentially missing all this other stuff that's going on that you can latch onto to bring in more revenue and ultimately more profits.
That's right. Exactly.
Yeah, I think there has to be obviously a healthy cycle. But either way, yeah, that's a great lesson.
Well, I'll come with another one-liner based on kind of Alex, what you were saying, which is, you're working on the business and working in the business and working on the business, and it's two very different things. When you're working in the business, you don't have time to think about bigger picture stuff and margins and variable and all that kind of stuff. You're just working you're just day to day, every day. As opposed to doing those weekly working on the business meetings or whatever, where you're thinking about other things there. So I think that was a really good point. And the last thing I want to talk about before moving to PlayBooked is about building habits to make life and work easier. Yeah. Because you shared a story last time that I just had to fit in the episode. So can you share the story about Andy and why that story is important?
Yeah. So Andy, hope you are hope you're watching this at some point. Andy's one of the best managers that we had at Shoe Station. Our Pensacola store was there forever. Worked his way up from being assistant manager to moving to another city, Tuscaloosa, moving back to Pensacola for us, and was in Mobile before that. But what he did was we would go into the store. The store is always immaculate. We would have these these biannual walkthroughs where all the key C-suite would go from store to store to store, and we would actually grade the stores relative to each other on a scale of 1 to 10. And the winning store, all the employees would get raises. So literally every hourly employee of the top store would get $1 an hour raise. The second store will get a half $1 an hour raise. Now, we're in the South, so if you're on a $7 or $8 an hour basis, that's a good thing. And this is before minimum wages raise. So big deal for the store employees. Even so, we would have some store managers never care. Like you walk in, stores look like garbage. They kind of shrug, and you're like, well, you're just hurting your employees. I mean, that's really the benefits from this. Andy's store was always at the top 2 or 3 stores, always look perfect. One time, so we go into a store on one of these occasions, and it just didn't look anywhere near as crisp. And it was just not him, right? And he seemed fine. He wasn't down or anything, but he was. And we said, Andy, kind of, what's going on? And he explained to us that, well, I've lost some key employees lately, but I don't think that's the problem. I mean, I've lost 3 employees. I have 30 employees. I don't know that that's the problem. And what we found was that those employees, and this is kind of cut to the chase, those employees were the employees that have been there the longest, and they were like Roombas, where you would basically set them in the morning, and before you got there, they knew, so-and-so would go and she would empty the trash, and then she would go and grab the vacuum cleaner and vacuum the aisle. And the other employee would cut the boxes back down in the stock room and put them outside the back door to get the trash out. Third employee would take all of our, do the internet orders that had accumulated over the night. And they would do that. And there's 30 other tasks like that. But they would do them without being told because they were habits. They would walk in, they knew they clocked in, they walked in, they did that. And then and all those employees coming at 8. Then by 8:30, he could have a meeting with the employees to talk about things that they could do on the business, to your point, versus in. So details versus big picture stuff. What happened was he lost those Roombas. He lost those people that were just used to doing these background tasks. And then he had other employees that he had hired that I'm sure were fine, but just would come into the store at 8 o'clock and have no idea what to do. And anybody who's operated a retail business, the first guy that gets there, the manager, is typically, he's counting the cash. He comes in, he unlocks the door, he goes to the office, he counts the cash, he reconciles the previous day's transactions. While he's doing that, the little automatic robots are out there doing what they're supposed to. And then the second his assistant manager comes in at 9 o'clock, they can have a meeting, and he's in his office the whole time, and stuff's being done around him. That all went away. So, what that kind of reinforced for me was when people are just on autopilot, that they just get there and they do it, you don't realize how valuable that is for business to have people that just kind of know what they're supposed to do and do it without being told. And that's, functionally, you and I then started talking about the value of habits. Mm-hmm. And, the emotional effort or emotional energy it takes to do something that your brain has recognized as a habit is a ton less emotional effort, physical effort often, and emotional energy. And when I say emotional energy, those tasks, if they require thought and effort and intellectual energy, they drain you. So just like that Roomba, definitely. Imagine a Roomba, but the Roomba doesn't have to keep going and being recharged. So if you, as a person, as an individual, create positive habits for you every day, for yourself every day, and you layer those habits on top of each other, your productivity skyrockets, and your energy to do those tasks really stays almost the same. And Alex, I think you gave a great example of, they've done studies on that, right? On how much
there's studies where you're part of the brain that is, when you're doing a habit, does not access your memory at all. You're literally on autopilot, so there's really no thought. You're just going and doing, which for the tasks that need to be done that are just in the business, the more you can create those into habits, I mean, the more productivity essentially, and the more creativity and the more, real thought when it's needed you're going to get from your team.
Yeah, absolutely. So the Andy story is kind of that story encapsulated, and as me adopting it for myself, I've realized that, and nobody's the best at doing this all the time, but if there's certain things that you do when you wake up in the morning, if you do get on the exercise bike for 20 minutes, or you do push-ups for 20, and you make your bed and you brush your teeth, but you set those positive habits and you set them in motion, and you don't have to do them all at once. You can pick, okay, this month I'm going to focus on this. And they say that for a task to become a habit, I think is 30 to 45 days. So
yeah, and I think obviously that's where Atomic Habits comes into play, especially that last part. Be a Roomba. Okay, got it. And Alex, I'm glad Alex is our resident discipline expert. So I knew he would have something there to add as well.
Right.
So now I'd like to get a little bit more into the marketing firm PlayBooked,
Sure.
because, again, a lot of our goal for the podcast is to build referrals among our guests that promote collaboration and support. So can you tell us who Chloe Mitchell is?
Yeah, so Chloe Mitchell is basically the country's first NIL athlete. She and her family set it up where they recognized, as the law was changing and getting ready to evolve, that she as a collegiate athlete was well positioned, both in terms of her prowesses in social media, et cetera, and her willingness to kind of put herself out there. What was able to take advantage of these, and they basically almost built this business around her and others like her. That was the intent of PlayBook, was to take people who recognized that they had a voice, that they had an ability to pass along a message, and allow them to monetize that. And that's the whole point of NIL, right? That you have that you have a student athlete who's an influencer, because they, in the truest name of the word, they carry influence among their friends and family, and their friends and family, and you allow them to be compensated for that, where their peers that weren't in athletics could be compensated. So, and she's still involved with the company today.
Yeah, so you guys had her in the her picture in the founders or whatever it was. So I think that's great. And the next few questions are really focused around, again, helping understand your business so that we can either send you referrals, or if there's any help that you need, if we have someone in our network. So, in a way that we can kind of just section this next question off and just put it in so someone can listen. What services do you guys provide?
So we basically allow a brand that sells goods or services to reach a mass audience by using athlete influencers, nano and micro influencers, people that have followings of anywhere from usually it's about 2,000 or 3,000 followers all the way up to 50,000 followers, and we allow them to do that at scale. And we offer a white glove service to say, if you want to run a campaign and you want to reach this audience, here's the way that you can do it, where you're utilizing the combined voices of dozens of athletes to talk about your product or service. And it's my personal opinion that aggregation of their following is infinitely better than paying an Uber influencer, paying somebody with 10 times the following and paying them 20 times the money to do the same thing. And I also personally believe that athletes have a unique value proposition because their voice is really felt to be authentic. That if they talk about a product and if they back something, just like the uniform they wear, that it stands for something more than themselves. So it's that authenticity of their voice that really enhances the message.
I don't know if you guys are already doing this, and I'll send you a bill for consulting after the call, but I've worked a lot with e-commerce agencies, and I've worked a lot with Amazon agencies, as well as obviously marketing agencies through previous jobs. I don't know if you guys are reaching out to e-commerce agencies. they are begging for influencers all the time, e-commerce specifically. Like, especially like I would just go down to Amazon products and just find the owner and reach out to, because they, again, my other job, I'm working with e-commerce a lot, and I can't tell you how many times I hear about them wanting influencers and all that, and not knowing where to start and all that stuff. So
absolutely great. And we found, for example, 1-800-Flowers and personalization malls, a recent client of ours. You're completely accurate. They love it. The message spreads real well for e-com. And then also you can use athletes from all over the country, and geography matters less.
And I charge $400 an hour, and I always round up. So
that's right. Good.
So, no 15. I'm not a lawyer with a 15-minute increments. The other thing
you got to be reasonable, Josh.
Say it again.
So you got to be reasonable. Those 15-minute increments go a long way.
No, I mean, I locked them in. It's and 1-800-Flowers. When I was a kid, I used to prank call them. We'd always pretend it was pizza or something like that. So I think it's another question again to help you, just build business around all of our guests. How can you work with other marketing agencies, or what services can you partner with other agencies? So in other words, what do agencies tend to reach out to you for?
Well, I think you just basically, we can pretty seamlessly become an arm of your business, where it's you add us to the suite of options that you offer your clients. So if you're a marketing agency and say you're already working with Home Depot, and Home Depot says to you, well, hey, we really want to work with influencers. And especially we kind of like the athlete avenue and that's not what you do as a marketing company. Call us. Like, we'll absolutely work with you. We will figure out the commission structure in a way that makes sense to both groups, and we'll help your clients white glove it. So that's usually the biggest hesitation that we're finding with some of these brands is, well, they want to do it, but it's too unmanageable. And that's part of the reason why we're good at what we do, right? So if you're a Home Depot and you wanted to reach out and you had a third-party marketing agency, that agency, if Home Depot said to them, well, what if we got 50 athletes to do this? The marketing agency would be like, I don't even know where to start. How do we even do that? How do we contact them? How do we make sure they do what they're supposed to do? Here's the answer. It's playbooked.com. The marketing company gives us a call, and we'll plug in, and we're a great partner. We're just announcing a strategic alliance with the Brander Group. They have access to 95 different universities. I think it's 96 now, university marks. And if you want athletes sitting if you're, 1-800-Flowers, and you want athletes sitting at their computer wearing their, Clemson jersey while they're doing it, ordering their mom flowers, we can make that happen. And we can make it happen where it's 50 athletes doing it, and it's men and it's women, and maybe it's a Clemson athlete or a South Carolina athlete. I mean, we can do that. So that would be the best thing that I would say. And the other thing that I would say is, it's really explaining to the brands that this is even a good tactic to use. So I would say that just like those marketing agencies, we can help you. If they ask for it, I would say suggest that this is an avenue that they should use, and not just go after we want influencers. Okay, well, an influential does a great job, but their focus is people who are professional influencers, effectively, right? So I think the beauty of what we do is it's often people who think they're not professional influencers, but they influence 20,000 people. So
if we were to put this down for like a marketing agency, if they're going after a specific target market that includes either that target market follows athletes, follows certain sports, or maybe certain college teams, are there any other ones that we should include of basically trigger that thought?
I would say you're correct on those, and then I would put those completely aside, and I would just say people that are targeting 18 to 25-year-olds. Full stop. Because all those people, it's not just that they're following the teams, they're following the person. And that's the cool thing. The followers that one of these athletes has are people who they played with or against in high school and middle school, are their parents and relatives, are the people who they played against or with parents and relatives, and then tons of people from the current school that they're in. And then in an NIL world, it may be from the previous school, the current school, the next school they might go to, right? So you're not just targeting an athlete because or people who like athletics or people who like this sport. You're targeting an entire age range of people. And that actually is like the secret sauce right now that almost any traditional business is desperate to figure out a way to plug into, are 18 to 25-year-olds, right? You get them and you get their younger brothers and sisters. And then if you get them and keep them, you get them when they have kids and when they have grandkids. So it's, so absolutely I agree with you on that. But I think you're going after an entire demographic that is next to impossible to grab en masse right now.
Mm-hmm. Yellow Pages is not really hitting that
no.
not newspaper ads, not doing it.
I've been looking for my yellow. I've been
only
looking
if you buy the cover.
Yellow Pages in my house for weeks now. I can't.
To flip that question that we just asked around, what do you usually outsource to other marketing agencies? So maybe you get a request from a client that you guys, is in your core competency, and you usually will look for someone else.
Well, I say it's outsourcing, but it's effectively a fantastic partnership that we've done with the Brander Group. And if somebody says that they want to have a university mark on what the athlete is doing, we're outsourcing it theoretically to the Brander Group, but we work hand in hand with them on the campaign. That's the best example I would give to you. Now, if it is a university that's out of their 96 that they currently work with, we will work with other people. We have worked with Ubiquitous in the past. We have worked with Influential in the past. So we have worked with Ogilvy in the past. So we are more than happy to work with these other agencies because I think the worst thing that a marketing agency can do is pretend to be good at something they're not. I think it's dangerous and I think it's stupid. I would rather tell one of our clients that we're working with the Brander Group and here's what we're doing. What a lot of them won't do is they won't tell you they're working with a third party. They'll just do it and then they'll just jack the rates up. So their margin is the same. So it ends up being much more expensive. And I would say if it's more expensive, it's usually not as productive. Using the technical word productive. Right. Per dollar productivity drops. If you charge twice as much as somebody because you outsource it without, but if I legitimately outsource something and I say to the client, we're going to work with the Brander Group on this, that doesn't hurt us. That only helps us. And then you have to, tighten your margins. Everybody has to tighten their margins so they give a realistic, true value add for their services.
I got one more question, Alex. Any questions on your side before I jump into the last question?
Would be cool to have someone from the Brander Group on the show as well.
Yeah, they'd love to.
And now we just put in the recording, so now you have to. So that's
they'd love to. They'll do that.
Okay,
yeah, I just looked them up. I really like what they're doing.
Yeah. No, and great group of guys. What's cool about it's very humbling because I've watched sports. I've played sports very badly in the past. I would say if there's the opposite of the word professional and it's not amateur, it's below that. That's me. I've become a vaguely passable tennis player. I'm still working on my serve, but they know everything about, the knowledge is that's the cool thing about it. The knowledge base and also, just knowing who to contact at what university and being able to get things done. When we work with them, we can get a campaign done in a month, start to finish, making the contacts at the university, getting permission to use the marks, all that stuff. It could take other people 6 months to do it. Or they say they'll be able to do it. And then at the very end, they convince you, don't do that school, do that school. Well, the reason is because they couldn't make the deal with that school. They didn't even know who to contact. Right. So
you'll be pickleballing in the near future. That'll be
I'm almost as good at pickleball as I am at tennis.
Well, that's what I was going to say is pickleball really, because pickleball kind of allows you don't have to have the knee strength as much. You don't have to be moving around as much. You don't have to.
I do like pickleball. My 9-year-old I think is going to be very good at pickleball.
I mean, they're taking over. What was it the other day? I heard it was another sport, and they were taking a roller hockey rink away for pickleball.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was a roller hockey player, so I'm kind of upset. Actually, I played tennis and hockey, pretend tennis. All right, last question. I was last on the team. I just did because all my friends were on the team. Last question is any books, podcasts, or newsletter recommendations, and that can be marketing and business. It doesn't have to be anything that just pops in your head right now. We would love to hear.
Yeah, I mean, books. You were holding up one of them. I mean, I love most Simon Sinek book. I don't think that was one, but but most Simon Sinek books I just love. I mean, it really resonate kind of with exactly what we're looking at. I've been looking at a sports podcast. A LinkedIn. It's not a podcast, a newsletter series. And I'll circulate it afterwards. I don't want to be researching while I'm talking to you, but very good stuff. I think it's Heitner Law Firm, and he does a great series of newsletters, and it's all NIL. And it's, you just plug into it and just kind of soak up knowledge. Good stuff.
Perfect. I was trying to figure it out right while you were mentioning that. As we come up to the end of the episode, I just want to give you an opportunity to mention how people can find you and anything else you'd like to end with.
Yeah, so you can reach me obviously through our friends here. They have all my contact information, but easiest way is Brent Barkin at playbooked.com. Love to have conversations, and what the other thing we're really good at is just listening to you. And as we said, if it's not something we can do, we'll tell you it's not something we can do. We can direct you elsewhere. But happy to have any conversations. And what I would just say is, if you're a brand and you're contemplating how to reach a demographic that is one of the most challenging to reach, contemplate using this avenue. And it's an easy way to test it. And I think the results speak for themselves from the people that we've had use it before.
And thank you so much for coming on the show. And for those of you who have learned something new from this episode, please consider giving us a like or a follow so we can continue getting the highest quality of guests. And as always, thank you for listening. Brent, love this. Thank you for this.
Thanks, Josh. Thanks, Alex.
This was great. Thanks.
Thanks for listening to the Masters in Marketing Agency podcast. I hope you got a ton of value out of this episode. And before we go, I just want to thank our sponsors, DevNoodle. DevNoodle provides marketing agencies with the ability to offer their clients unlimited website design, build, and management services with fixed monthly plans. If website design, development, and maintenance is holding your agency back from growing, please reach out to us at devnoodle.com, where we make websites easy for you and easy for your clients. devnoodle.com.